Hello and welcome to all our viewers. The whole world is facing an unprecedented economic, medical and humanitarian crisis of the coronavirus pandemic. Economies are shattered and more damage is yet to come. Everyone is looking for a solution. At this critical juncture, what is the option before world economies? How deep is the crisis and is there any solution at all? To discuss all that and much more, today we are joined by Dr. Gita Gopinath, Chief Economist of the International Monetary Fund. Thanks for talking to us, Dr. Gopinath. And first of all, what is your assessment of the economic fallout of coronavirus crisis? And sitting there in US, how do you see the post-coronavirus world?
So this is a crisis like no other, and we just came out with a report on the impact on the global economy. We're projecting a recession in the global economy of -3%. So this would make it the worst recession since the global depression, so the Great Depression. It's much worse than the global financial crisis, where growth overall fell by about 0.1%. The second thing that's important to note is that this is a truly global crisis, which means that advanced economies and emerging and developing economies are all being hit very hard by this crisis. And a third point I want to make is that, while we have growth at -3% for 2020, we do have a recovery for 2021. However, that is a partial recovery. So the effects of this crisis will weigh on countries and on the global economy for well into 2021.
And I'll come to latest news now, Dr. Gopinath. One of the fallout was the recent oil shock. Well, the oil prices went negative. Do you see it getting repeated again?
So what we're seeing, Sumit, is two phenomena. One, of course, is the very large collapse in demand for oil. As you've seen transportation basically come to a halt everywhere in the world, demand is collapsing for oil. And on the other hand, there's been a turbulent OPEC plus relationship. And so the combination of that has generated a situation where the supply of oil is just so much in excess of the demand, is leading to storage problems. And so you see phenomenon that we haven't seen in our lifetime, which is negative prices for oil futures and even for oil spot prices in the US. I think what we can say for sure is that this uncertainty and the volatility around oil will continue for the next several months. Now, if you look at maybe a year going into the next year, we have oil prices coming back up to our forecast is for oil per barrel to be about $35 for 2020 and 2021. But again, just as this crisis is so unpredictable and so uncertain, and so much depends upon the pandemic and how the containment measures work and whether 2020 is a time for recovery, all of that again weighs on the oil market and the impact on oil prices.
And will there be an existential crisis for the oil-dependent Gulf economies and many Latin American nations as well? Will they look at changing their growth models now and from oil-dependent economy to maybe de-risking to other types of economic growth?
For countries that rely on oil exports, these are doubly difficult times. So they're dealing both with a health crisis, a financial crisis, but then also a very important source of external revenue that comes, the dollar revenue that comes from exporting oil, that's been very badly hit. And this, even if prices come back up, nobody is projecting the prices that we saw before the virus. So this is what we would call a permanent shock. And countries need to adjust to this kind of a permanent shock. This is going to have implications in terms of their fiscal situation, but also this is the time for countries to diversify away from it. I mean, the world is in what we call a great lockdown. That's the name we're giving at the IMF to this current crisis. And while we're in this great lockdown, we are going to see countries that rely on sectors like tourism, on transportation, countries that rely on oil exports. All of these are going to be very badly hit.